Hi there, this is Sarah Kuhn. If you are an INFJ or in a relationship with an INFJ or related to an INFJ in any way, and you want to figure out how they operate, what makes them tick, and how to communicate with them better, this is the show for you. It's called The Quiet Ones. This is a show that deconstructs INFJs, what they are, how they think, how they feel, how they operate, and how they relate to people with other personality types. Whether you have just found out that you're an INFJ or have known for a number of years, there is something for everyone. You will learn more about your personality type so that you understand who you are and understand how you operate in the workplace, in relationships, in your family, and with friends. I want you to walk away from every episode feeling like you have a place of belonging, feeling like you are no longer alone, feeling like you have a place to be heard and seen and understood as you really are. This is a place to connect with other INFJs, to learn and grow and really thrive. I want to give you inspiration and real life strategies that are going to help you figure out how to live your best life every single day. Though INFJs are very rare, you are not alone in this world. You are not the only one who thinks the way that you do and feels the way that you do. Hear from real INFJs just like you. Before we get started, just a quick word from our sponsors. Thank you to Rachel Ann for becoming a Patreon sponsor. We really appreciate your support and hope that you enjoyed the Patreon sponsor exclusive podcast episode for October called 5 Reasons to Door Slam Someone. On the episode, we also discussed what to do when your friends and family don't agree with you cutting someone out of your life, and what to do in the aftermath of a door slam. You can help support the Quiet Ones podcast too, and get access to exclusive podcast episodes, blog posts, and more when you become a sponsor on Patreon for just $5 a month. Sign up today at patreon.com/INFJwoman. You can find the link in the show notes. Hey there, Sarah Kuhn here. Welcome to another episode of The Quiet Ones. I'm so happy that you're here today. Today we're talking about common personality traits of INFJs. We're also going to dive into some of our strengths and weaknesses and talk a little bit about INFJ characters in books, movies, and TV shows. So let's start with a little refresher on what an INFJ is. The term comes from the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator Personality Test. If you haven't taken the test yet, I strongly encourage you to do so. You can take it for free at 16personalities.com, and it really only takes about 10 minutes. But what does INFJ stand for? According to the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator Personality Test, every person in the whole entire world falls into one of 16 different personality types. The first letter is either extrovert or introvert, and this represents where your energy comes from. Do you focus on the inner world or the outer world? As introverts, we tend to focus on our inner world. The second letter is either sensing or intuitive. And this is where your focus is. Do you prefer to focus on basic information you take in, or do you prefer to interpret the information that you take in and add meaning to it? If you have a sensing personality, you just take the information as it comes in, and that's all that there is. You take everything at face value. If you're intuitive, you read between the lines. You see more than what's actually said. The third letter is either thinking or feeling, and this is how you make decisions. Do you look at facts and logic, or do you go with your gut feeling? As INFJs, we actually use both sides of our brain, both the thinking and the feeling side, so we can see logic in a lot of things, but when it comes to making a difficult decision, we usually go with our gut or how we feel. And then the last letter is either judging or perceiving. And this is what behaviors others see, how you live your outer life. A lot of people get this one confused with being judgmental, and that's not what judging means at all. This is things like how organized you are, how often you do things, how motivated you are to do something. If you have a judging personality, you tend to be more organized than somebody who has a perceiving personality. You tend to want to know a schedule, maybe not a strict schedule, but at least have something in place. Whereas a perceiving personality, they're just more of a go with the flow type of person, and they're more spontaneous as well. I also wanted to bring up something that I found on the Myers-Briggs Foundation website on how to use the type indicator test. It says, never imply that all people of a certain type behave in the same way. Types should not encourage stereotyping or be used to put people in rigid categories. So I want to be clear that what we're talking about here are not rigid categories. Every INFJ is different. We all grew up in different families with different parents and different friends. We're influenced by those things and so many other things as well. Things like where you grew up, your town, your country, your school, your church, and so on. Everything influences you. We're also influenced by our life circumstances as well as our health. The personality descriptions are written based on healthy people, and not all of us are healthy, me included. I'm biased because I struggle with depression and anxiety. I know for sure that that colors the way that I view things. When I post things on social media, I pick out the things that touch me the most. And they lean towards the dark and twisty sometimes because that's me. That's what I relate to. I have to catch myself every once in a while and throw in something that's not dark, something that's a bit more happy and sunny. So every INFJ is different. We are all similar and we have the same intentions and motives and desires, but we are all different as well. We want to help people, but we approach things from different angles. So let's break down a little bit more what INFJ is. And I wanted to go over something that I found on the Myers-Briggs Foundation website this past week. You can also find this on my website at infjwoman.com under the About section. So the first letter I stands for introversion. Now, that is getting all of your energy from dealing with ideas, pictures, memories, reactions that are inside your head and your inner world. It means that you prefer doing things alone or with one or two people that you feel comfortable with. It also means that you take time to reflect and have a clear idea of what's going on before you decide to act. You have lots of ideas, and sometimes the idea of doing something is actually better than the real thing. So things that describe you as an introvert are being reflective and reserved. You're comfortable being alone. You prefer just to know a few people. You don't need to know everybody in your work or your school or your neighborhood. And you spend a lot of time reflecting, and you don't make spontaneous decisions usually. You usually think things out before you make a decision. And sometimes you forget about the outside world because you spend a lot of time in your head with the ideas that you have in your head. So the next letter is intuition, and that means that you're paying the most attention to impressions. You're looking for meaning and patterns in all of the information that you get. Sometimes you don't even know where the information comes from because it's such a natural process for you to gather so much information about the people and the situations that you're in. You're more interested in learning about a problem by thinking rather than doing. You also think more about the future than the past. You're more interested in learning about new ideas than learning about what's happened in the past. You also like things that are like symbols and abstract theories, even if you know that you'll never use them. One example of this, especially for me, is I did really well in calculus when I was in college. In fact, I actually studied engineering for a while. And I love the type of algebra and calculus that doesn't make sense, that's not useful, or that's not supposed to make sense, I should say, because it always made sense to me. But once you start getting to the stuff that's supposed to be useful, like physics and dynamics, it was a lot harder for me, and I wasn't as interested because I wanted to do the stuff that I felt like that nobody wanted to do. So some statements that describe you as far as intuition goes are you're able to read between the lines. You can solve problems because you can see all of the different sides of things. And you can see more than what's actually there, or more than what somebody is actually telling you. You're interested in doing new and different things. You like to see the big picture and then find out all of the little facts about it. You trust impressions, symbols, and metaphors more than you actually experienced. And you like to think about new possibilities more than you like to think about reality. Even if you know that those new possibilities will never become a reality, you're still caught up in thinking about them. The next one is feeling. So you make decisions based on thinking about what people care about and the point of view of other people involved in the situation. The decisions that you make, they're not just about you. They're about all of the people that this decision will affect. You're concerned with values and what's best for everybody that's involved. You're also very concerned about maintaining harmony and making sure that everybody's getting along. And in relationships, you appear caring, warm, and tactful in most cases. So as far as the feeling part goes, the statements that generally apply to you, you're very oriented towards people or communications. You're very concerned about the people around you. You want to make sure that there's harmony, and you get really nervous or anxious when that's missing. When there's some kind of a conflict or something, you want to be the one who's like smoothing the waters and making sure everybody's getting along. You make decisions with your heart and want to be compassionate. You're very caring about other people. You also believe that being tactful is more important than telling the cold truth. Now this is coming from the Myers-Briggs Foundation website. This one is a little bit difficult for me because there are some times when I tell people the cold, hard truth. And it is important for me to worry about other people's feelings or to care about their feelings and to think about their feelings. I think that sometimes I just don't understand that what I'm saying is the cold, hard truth. I have been accused of being very blunt and straightforward before, where in places where I didn't think that I was being that way. So I think that there's definitely a learning around that. And the older that you get, the more tactful you become as well. You've lived through plenty of situations where people look at you like, why did you say that? So then you start to learn a little bit more like what's okay to say and what's not okay to say. So the next thing is sometimes you miss seeing or communicating the hard truth of situations, which is true. And some of us just do that. Sometimes we know that it's the hard truth and we still communicate it because we feel like whoever we're talking to, they need to know. You've also been accused of being too idealistic, mushy, or indirect at times, which is true for me. It's hard to find a balance between being direct and being very, very direct and being completely indirect. So the last one is judging. And remember, like we talked about before, judging does not mean judgmental. That's not what it means at all. It means that this is how you use your decision-making preference in the outer world. Your decision-making preference is whether you're thinking or feeling, and this is how you use it in the outer world. To others, it seems like you have plans and a very orderly way of life, and you like to have things settled and organized. You feel more comfortable when decisions are made. And you like to bring life under control as much as possible. But this only describes how you are in the outside world. On the inside, you might be more flexible and more open to new information. And the following statements apply. You like to have things decided. You appear to be very task-oriented. I definitely am. I like checking things off my list. You like to make lists to do things. You get all of your work done before playing. And you're capable of getting all of your work done. Even if you do procrastinate, you know what the deadline is. So you're able to get it done before the deadline. So again, you can find all of this information on my website at infjwoman.com under the About section or on the Myers-Briggs Foundation website at myersbriggs.org. So now we know what an INFJ is, and you're sure that you're an INFJ now, which is so cool. Congratulations on being one of the really, really rare ones. But what does it mean in your everyday life? Now we're going to talk about INFJ strengths and weaknesses. So these come from the 16 Personalities website. So as far as strengths, the first one is creative. We as INFJs are very creative because we have a very vivid imagination. And we use our creativity not only in our imagination, but also in our everyday lives. We use it to see problems that most people don't see. And not only can we see the problems, but we can come up with a practical solution to fix the problems. I see this as both a blessing and a curse, a strength and a weakness, because for me, I can walk into pretty much any situation, and once I understand what's going on, especially like at a new job or in a situation with my friend, I can look at the whole situation and say, oh, okay, this is broken, this is broken, this is broken, you can do this better, this is what you need to do here, and just lay everything out and fix it all, which is a great strength to have, but very few people want to hear it, honestly. And they'll tell you, especially in jobs, people will say, when you go to a job interview, they'll say, yeah, we're looking for somebody who can come in here and bring some new ideas and some creative insight, and we know that we have some systems that need to be fixed, and we would love to hear any ideas that you have. And you're like, great, I have tons of ideas. And then you take the job and you get there and you present all of your ideas, and they're like, no, we're not going to do that. I mean, we're going to do it the way that we've always done it because we've always done it that way, which is the most frustrating answer in the whole entire world. I mean, I just don't understand. I don't understand why people want to continue doing something that's ineffective and difficult just because they've always done it that way. That doesn't make any sense to me. So it's very, very frustrating for me as an INFJ to have that ability and not be able to use it. As far as creativity, it's also a strength for us because we're excellent counselors and advisors. So we're able to see other people's problems and able to fix them as well. And the next strength is being insightful. We can see through dishonesty very quickly. We can see manipulation and sales tactics, and that's not really something that we're interested in. We would much rather be involved in an open and honest discussion. One of the biggest things that drives me insane is when I can see people trying to manipulate me. And I hate it. I don't even want to talk to the person who does that anymore because I feel like everything that they do is with a bad intention. And for me, too, I would much rather have an open and honest conversation, especially when somebody wants something or needs something from me. I would much rather them say, hey, this is what I need, even if it's a difficult ask. I would rather them be open and honest about it rather than them trying to manipulate me to get it. I feel like for me, it's part of the values and respect thing. So yeah, manipulation doesn't go well with me, or sales tactics either. I don't like those. So our third strength is being inspiring and convincing. When we speak in human terms, we usually have a very fluid and influential writing style that appeals to the inner idealist of our audience. Even though we're introverted, we can be astonishingly good at speaking, especially when we're speaking about something that comes from our heart, something that we're very passionate about and that means a lot to us. And especially something that we're proud of. We can be really good at speaking and writing as well. Another strength is that we're very decisive. Because of all of our creativity and insight and inspiration, we're able to have an impact on the world, and we're able to follow through with all of our ideas because we are very decisive. We don't just have the dreaming aspect of ideas. We have the dreaming and the doing too. We're able to put all of the ideas that we have into motion and to see our projects through to the end. We don't just see things how they should be, but we act on those things to make sure that our lives turn out the way that we want them to. The next strength is that we're dependable and passionate. So this is one of my favorite quotes from their website. When advocates come to believe that something is important, they pursue that goal with a conviction and energy that can catch others off guard. I love that, honestly. And it's very true. I've done that several times in my life. I've made a decision to follow one of my dreams, and I've turned my whole life upside down to do it. And my friends and family will look at me like, what are you doing? Like, I can't believe that you would be so passionate about something, but it's very true. This is one of our strengths because we're able to turn things upside down if we need to. When we're passionate about something, it can become an inseparable part of our personality. It's something that's incredibly important to us. And not everybody agrees with this or understands it, but it's something that is really pretty awesome to see. I'm always attracted to people who are passionate about something. I love seeing somebody talk about something that they really care about, even if it's something that I don't care about at all. I love to see them talk about it. And the last strength is altruistic. And just in case you don't know what this means, because I didn't know what it means, I Googled it for you. It means showing a disinterested and selfless concern for the well-being of others, or unselfish. That is very true for me. So it's very true when these strengths are used for good, because you can take being selfless to a level where it's not healthy. But when it is healthy, it's really good because you're able to think about all of the people around you and the decisions that you make. And not everybody is able to do that. Most people just make decisions for themselves and don't realize how they impact everybody else. Okay, so now let's talk about some weaknesses. One of our biggest weaknesses is that we're very sensitive. When people criticize or challenge us, especially our principles or our values, they get a very strong response. Questioning our motives is the quickest way to get to our bad side. One of the things that bothers me the most is when people try and criticize my work. I put my heart and soul into my work. So when somebody tells me that I'm not doing a good job or that something is wrong, and I mean not just like little things, not like, oh, hey, you misspelled this. I appreciate that. I really do. But when somebody tries to attack, I guess it is the values or the morals behind what I'm doing, the principles behind it, that really bothers me a lot. Another weakness is that we're extremely private. We're extremely private about our personal lives, so it's really difficult to get to know us. More times than not, we have a front that we put on to our friends. We kind of adapt our personality to fit the friends that we have. So we adapt our personality for the different personalities that each one of our friends have. And it seems like it could be a good thing because, you know, we're able to get along with a lot of different people. So we're very adaptable, which, you know, is good in the workplace and it's good for acquaintances. But when you're talking about your close friends, they don't really know you, and it's really, really hard. It's especially hard for me to get to know somebody or to let them get to know me, because as soon as I start to feel like they're not accepting of me, then there are just things that I just don't share with them. There are just parts of my personality that I just shut off. So I feel like each friend knows a different version of me because there's only certain things that I share with each one of them. So from that perspective, we are very hard to get to know. Another weakness is that we're perfectionists. We like things to be done really well. We have this idea in our head of how things should be, whether it's at work or at home with our friends or our loved ones. And we work really hard to make that idea come to life. So when reality doesn't match up with our expectations, then we are sometimes too quick to drop whatever situation it is and move on, thinking that there might be something else better down the road. Another weakness is that we always need to have a cause. We like to have something that we're working towards. I wouldn't say it as a cause. I would more say it as a goal. I like to have a goal, and I always have a really big goal in front of me. Something that a lot of people tell me is impossible or that will never happen, which is fine with me because the more that they tell me that I can't do it, the more that I want to do it. But it becomes a weakness when you drop everything, and I mean everything, in pursuit of this goal. Especially when the goal is so unrealistic that it will never happen. And then once you realize that it's never going to happen the way that you want it to, then you feel incredibly disappointed. And that is incredibly difficult to deal with. Especially when you have this goal and you're very close to it, and then you realize that the goal is not what you expected. That disappointment is really difficult to bear. And the last one is that we can get burnt out very easily. That is very true from a couple of different perspectives. Because we pursue our goals with such passion and almost impatience and idealism, we tend to put ourselves out there in pursuit of these goals. At the same time, we're always there for other people, all the other people in our lives. So whether it's our family members or our friends or the people at work, we're always doing more for them than we are for ourselves, generally. So it's very easy for us to be exhausted. And sometimes it's just from thinking about your ideas. You can be mentally exhausted without being physically exhausted, but it's almost worse. So it's important for us to find balance as far as that goes. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about is some common INFJ traits. I was doing some research this week and I came across something on Reddit. I rarely go on Reddit. It doesn't make very much sense to me, honestly. It seems really disorganized and messy and very difficult to follow. So I don't really go on there very often. But I came across this. It's from somebody named SoulWatcher8. And I really got lost in the post, honestly. So that's why I wanted to share it with you, because it made a lot of sense to me, and I hope it makes sense to you too. And it's called, Are These Common INFJ Traits? What Do You Think? So the first one, and I'm going to read to you exactly what they said. It says, you think of future scenarios and what you will do in it. When something remotely similar happens, which is fairly often, your solution is not optimal because some factors are different. So you come up with another solution on the spot which works well. You wonder why you wasted time thinking about this situation if you were gonna wing it anyway. But you keep doing this. When you are rested, you do this less. So what do you think? Do you do this? I know for me, I do it for sure. When I'm sure that something will happen, whether I know for sure or my intuition is telling me it will happen, I always want to be prepared. So I run scenarios in my head until I come up with what I want to say because I need to be prepared. The part that really gets me though is when I plan something out in my head and the other person doesn't say or do what I have planned for them to do. I mean, I plan like 12 different scenarios in detail and they can't seem to cooperate, and I don't understand that. But when they do cooperate and say exactly what I predicted that they would say, then it feels really creepy. Like I can predict the future sometimes. And it kind of freaks me out. Okay, so number 2. They said, you don't seem to fall in love on your own. But when someone loves you, that love kind of rubs off on you and you can reciprocate. So you can maintain a relationship, but it doesn't last because you are cold inside. They continue, I fall in love all by myself because I'm warm on the inside and cold on the outside. I have a hard time extending my feelings beyond myself unless I'm extremely, extremely comfortable with someone, which is very rare. So for me, I have a difficult time falling in love with people too. I usually notice when there's someone around who's really, really attractive, but I'm not the type of person to just fall in love with them on the spot. I really have to know them and know their personality and their beliefs and their values before I start to fall for them. It's more like a process than an instantaneous type of thing. Okay, the next one says, you don't seem to get angry on your own. When someone disappoints you, you just withdraw and be cold. You don't scold them or demand anything. You just slowly disappear and cut ties. I agree with this a lot too, because it's pretty rare that I get seriously angry with someone and stay that way. I also don't like to confront people, although this is something that I'm really working on. I always want to give people another chance. One more chance, one more chance. And I usually spend a lot of time thinking about why they got mad. Like, was it my fault? Which is another thing that's unhealthy that I'm working on. The next one says, when a group of people near you gets mad at injustice, such as bullying, or sometimes just the victim gets sad, you get angry and want to do something, and sometimes do intervene and manage it well, but collapse at home because you are exhausted. I agree with this a lot. Anytime that I have to confront someone, Even if it's just an email or text message, it makes me exhausted. And I need like a day to recover from it at least. I hate seeing people getting bullied as well. And it really makes me want to step in. When I feel like it's safe for me to step in, I definitely will. But I'm always very conscious of my safety as well. The next one says, you think non-verbally. You think in something weird for 70% of the time, and you think verbally 30%, of which 20% is agreeing with the nonverbal thought. And the 10% is an actual verbal rendition of those abstract thoughts. An image of a set of scales. You try to balance it by adding small weights. You are not there actually. Just small weights appear and disappear. Why do I do this? Ah, yes, the balance between compassion and rationality. Is this true for you? I had to think about it for a while before I realized that it's very true for me. I do think in images more often than not. My mind is actually like a movie that's constantly playing, or like 12 movies actually. Sometimes they switch without me noticing. It happens really fast, and I can switch back and forth between thinking about different things pretty quickly. I actually have this epic love story that's playing in my head that has been there for the longest time. And I feel like if I could ever write it down, it would be completely amazing, totally epic, something like Jane Austen level. But it's difficult to write as fast as it moves, and that would mean exposing myself on a whole new level. So, yeah, I don't know about that, not yet. We're just gonna move on to the next one for now. You don't share your secrets, and what you do share are not really secrets, just some benign facts about yourself that you use to socialize. You don't trust people because they are very unstable and not very prudent. This is definitely true for me. I rarely share anything that I feel like is a very real secret. Most people can't handle my secrets. No one really knows the real me, not even the people closest to me. But I do have a list of secrets, in quotation marks, that I keep handy for when I need them. You know, things that are kind of secret-y, but they're not really that extreme. They're like socially acceptable. I've done research. I know if they're socially acceptable. I feel like Sheldon Cooper in The Big Bang Theory. Do you watch that show? Oh my God, it's one of my favorites. I love it every time he says, I'm not crazy. My mom had me tested. So I feel like when I say, yeah, I've done research, like it's not crazy. I've done research. I always hear him saying that in my head when I say something like that. Okay, so the next one. You used to tolerate unhealthy people, then cut them off all at once, like without a goodbye, because you don't even want to see their last reaction. You don't even feel guilty because you gave them chances and they blew it all. A few days later, you don't even think about them anymore. They literally are just people who do not exist. This is true for me for sure. It's called a door slam, and I do forget that people exist sometimes. And then every once in a while they pop up on my Facebook, like in Facebook memories or as a friend suggestion, and I'm like, no, Okay, so the next one says, people fear your eyes for some reason. So you blink aptly to diminish the intimidation. This is definitely true for me. So many people have told me that I'm intimidating. And I don't really understand why they think I'm intimidating. But they think I am. So I try to be less intimidating sometimes. When I want them to like me, I'll try to be less intimidating. But if I don't care if they like me, then I don't really worry about it too much. The next one says, you get an instant hunch about a person or a place and used to suppress it thinking you were judgmental. But they do cause catastrophes, and now you cut them off when you feel off surreptitiously, so they don't think you are nice. But in your mind, they are the untouchable. I do get instant hunches about people, and more often than not, I'm right. I try not to let people get too close too quickly because that too will get me into problems. And I've found too that the more that I rely on my intuition, the more I trust those hunches that I get about people, the better that it works, actually. And the faster that it works too. It's kind of a process though, learning to trust it. It's hard too when you meet somebody that you really like, but you have this feeling inside of you that something's off with them or something's wrong. It's difficult to trust, but like I said, more times than not, it's usually right. Okay, the next one says, you stopped voicing your thoughts because people think you are crazy or scary or cursed or weird and they shun you. So you stopped expressing them. This is definitely true for me too. Most people can't handle the truth or they just don't want to hear it. Most people also don't believe me when I tell them about my intuition. So I don't usually argue with them. I just don't tell them about it. This is also part of the reason that people don't know the real me, like we spoke about before. A lot of times too, when I try to tell people about my intuition, they think that I'm trying to say that I'm psychic, which is not the case. I'm not psychic. It's just that I can pick up on things that most people don't see, especially people with a sensing personality. They're not going to notice it because that's not how their personality works. I've learned just to keep a lot of that stuff to myself because even sometimes the people closest to me don't understand or they don't believe me. The next one says, appetite is barely there. Bland food is better than most food. Meat tends to taste terrible and make you nauseous. You can tolerate minced meat mixed with spices, but you still don't prefer it. Soy milk, french fries, and potato chips are your staple. You add 2 tablets of multivitamins and 3 capsules of fish oil because you understand nutrition. I have a problem with my appetite, honestly, but it's not that it's not there. But I do have staples that I eat all the time. Like, I could eat the same food every day. I mean, I actually do usually eat the same food every day. And it doesn't usually get old. I'll change it up sometimes and find a new staple if it does get old, but it usually takes a long time. Like, one of my staples is I love Jimmy John's sandwiches, and I used to eat them like every single day for lunch for years. People would make comments that, people that I worked with would make comments like, oh, you went to Jimmy John's again? Like, do you eat that every single day? And I got to the point where I just wouldn't take it to work. I would eat in the restaurant or I would eat in my car just so I didn't have to deal with their comments. Because I loved it and I was like, well, if you really like something, why would you go somewhere else? But then I moved to Boston and there aren't really a lot of Jimmy John's here. There's like one way downtown, which is a long ways from where I live. So now I go to Panera almost every single day, either Panera or Whole Foods, because Whole Foods makes this really awesome pizza for lunch and it's not really that expensive. But I go like every single day. And it's awesome because Panera has a rewards program. So you get free lunches every once in a while. But yeah, I eat the same thing every single day. And one of the reasons that I change it up actually is because people start to know what I'm gonna order. And that kind of bothers me. It's like, I don't want them looking at me going, oh, you want your usual today? Which they don't really look at me because I order from my app, So that is also a big factor in where I go to lunch, because I would much rather order from an app and then just go pick it up rather than having to actually talk to somebody. But yeah, I can definitely eat the same thing every single day. And when I go to the grocery store too, I usually, because I'm by myself, I don't have a husband or kids or anything. I usually just buy 1 or 2 things. So I'll make 1 thing or 2 things for the whole week and just eat the same thing. And it doesn't really bother me at all, honestly. What bothers me more is the deciding what to buy or deciding what to do. I like to already have it lined up. I like to already know, okay, this is what you're going to have for lunch all week. And it's like, cool, that takes so much stress off of me. So I don't have to decide what to eat. I just already know this is what I'm going to eat. Okay, the next one says, you think most people suffer. Some manage it. Few are happy and fulfilled. I definitely agree with this. I don't think most people suffer, though. I know that most people suffer. Most people live an ordinary, miserable life, and they seem incredibly unhappy to me. I mean, how can you be happy when you don't have any dreams or hopes or ambitions? That I just don't understand at all. I've watched so many people grow up in the same small town that I grew up in and get married young and have a bunch of kids and then get divorced, and I think they can't be really happy at all. I mean, I understand that having kids is a big thing, and I'm sure that it provides a lot of happiness, but I don't understand how you can't have any other dreams or how you don't want to do anything else with your life. You never want to go on vacation or travel and see something new or go explore a different part of the United States or whatever country it is that you live in. I don't understand that. I've always wanted to do something big with my life. I've always wanted to make a difference in somebody else's life. I've never wanted to be just ordinary. That just doesn't make sense to me. So the next one says, people say you are nice and social, but you feel like a robot inside. You feel like you are something else disguising as a human. Sometimes I agree with this for sure. It's difficult to put up a human front sometimes. It's hard to pretend to care about things like small talk and mandatory fun. That's what I call it. That's what I call it when you're forced to do something that you don't want to do. And it happens a lot in school. It happens in college. It happens even when you get to the workplace. Sometimes there are things that you have to do and you're like, ugh. They're like, oh, it's going to be fun. And you know it's going to be fun because they told you it was going to be fun, which is why it's called mandatory fun. Because you have to go. You can't opt out of it. I try to avoid those as much as possible. And I usually ask, it usually makes my bosses mad when I ask, am I going to get fired if I don't go to this event? And when they say yes, then it's like, okay, I have to go, but I'm going to show up barely on time and then leave as soon as possible and probably stand in the corner the whole time or with the one person at work that I like and talk to them the whole time. So yeah, I try to avoid those situations as much as possible. The next one says, you get lost with Google Maps with GPS on. Yes, this is true for me for sure. Sometimes I don't trust what it's saying, especially in Boston. The roads here are so insane. They're very small and most of them don't look like regular roads. Sometimes they look like little alleyways or that two cars can't fit down that size of a road. And so when it's telling you to turn right and you're looking at the road going, no, so I don't trust them. But then sometimes I zone out too, so I have to make sure that it's turned up loud enough and that I'm paying attention. And sometimes, I don't know why, they just stop talking and I can't figure out why. I turned it on the other day and it wouldn't talk to me and I looked at all the different settings and everything seemed right, but it still wouldn't talk. I was like, fine, I don't know why you're giving me the silent treatment. Why are you mad at me? I also don't know why we talk at GPSs like they're people. I don't know, but sometimes we do. I certainly yell at that thing like it's a person, for sure. Okay, the next one says, you procrastinate but somehow do things on time. This is definitely true for me, for sure, because let me tell you something. I have procrastinated recording this episode for a long time. And here it is, Sunday afternoon, and I'm recording it the Sunday before it's coming out. But it's going to happen on time because I always get things done on time. I like to have things organized in such a way where I know when they need to be done. So I'm able to do it even if it is at the last minute. I always get things done on time because I know how to manage my time. The next one says, you plan your future even though you know things will change. You guys, I can't even tell you how much this is true. I have my whole future planned out. I know my kids' names. I know what my dream house looks like. I know where I want to be buried when I die. I'm not anywhere close to getting married or having kids, and hopefully not close to dying either. But I know all of those things. I've always been obsessed with planning the next stage of my life. I also love to plan adventures. I read somewhere that looking forward to something brings you as much joy and happiness as actually doing it. And it's certainly true for me. I like to plan things that are 6 or 8 months in advance so that I have some time to look forward to it. It's like the next goal that I have to look forward to. I need something to look forward to. Okay, the next one says, you don't even ask your friends to hang out because it is enough when you say okay when they ask. You like talking with them and socializing, but you do not really need to seek it out yourself because your home is the best place and your friends tend to want to meet you periodically. This is true for me most of the time. There are some times that are usually pretty few and far between that I get really lonely and I'll reach out to some of my friends, but most of the time they know where to find me. And most of the people that I stay friends with are generally okay with that. The next one says, your thoughts actually mislead you. Your logic imprisons you. You get better insight when you write your thoughts non-coherently in a journal or when you talk to your friends mindlessly. The latter is why you say yes to your friend's request to hang out because conversation is slightly better than journaling. This is so true for me. Sometimes I need to say things out loud before they make sense to me. Sometimes I need to bounce things off of someone or see a different point of view to make it make sense. It helps to have someone who will listen to this and not judge me for what I'm saying or for why I'm thinking something out the way that I do. The best friends that I have are the ones that I can call and say, okay, here's this thesis on this thing that I've been thinking about for 6 months. What do you think? Does it make any sense to you? Where did I go wrong? What's not right here? Those are the best ones. The next one says, you don't go to meetups or group events. If you did, it was a mistake. You only socialize one-on-one with your few true friends. Your friends do not know each other. This is definitely true for me. I very rarely go to meetups or group events. It's kind of something that I've started doing more recently and only very certain select events. It's very, very difficult for me to go and be around a bunch of people and have to socialize with a bunch of people. I usually tend to not say anything in those situations and just listen to what everybody else is saying. But it's also true that most of my friends don't know each other. Most of my friends are from different aspects of my life. So I have some work friends and some friends that I met at group events and some friends that I met from the podcasting world. It's just different people that I've kind of almost collected in different places. And yeah, they don't usually know each other. The next one says, your criteria for friendship is simple. To be good-hearted is the first criterion. To be intelligent is the second criterion. To be intelligent is the second criterion, provided the first is met. You cannot be around intelligent but toxic people. You can be near nice but non-intelligent people and can enjoy it, but you do not relate to each other, and it's really not worth the time and energy. Most humans fail to meet the two criteria. This is definitely true for me. It's really hard to say this without sounding arrogant, but a lot of INFJs are very intelligent. And I think that part of it is because of how our personality works, because we spend so much time in our imagination, and because we usually like learning things, and we like learning things to the point where we become obsessed with them. So we know so much about a subject that when we go to talk to people, they don't usually understand unless they know the same about that subject too, which is very rare. In my experience, it's extremely rare to find people who understand things on the same level that I do. So it is difficult to find friends because a lot of people just don't fall into the first one. They're not good-hearted. I think, though, I would add a third one, which would be accepting, which is the most difficult one for most people, is to be accepting. I like people who will just accept me as I am, for who I am, rather than expecting me to change. That's something that I try to make sure that I'm doing with everybody in my life. I want to see the best in them, but I also want to accept them the way that they are and not the way I think that they should be. Okay, so like I said at the beginning, I found this on Reddit, and I don't even remember where or if I could even tell you where I found it. But it was posted by somebody called SoulWatcher8, and I didn't even read all of the different points. There were 27 different points, and we didn't go through all of them. But I thought it was really interesting, and it was definitely something for me that I related to a lot. Okay, before we keep going, let's just take a quick ad break. As an introvert, I hate going to the store and dealing with crowds just to get the basic things I need, like toilet paper and toothpaste. It's so much easier just to have those things shipped straight to my house so that I never run out. With Amazon Prime, you can set up auto shipments and get free shipping as well. Try Amazon Prime free for 30 days. Get unlimited free 2-day shipping with no minimum order. Click the link in the show notes to start your free trial today. I love listening to books with Audible in the car on my way to work or while I'm at work. I've been listening to Todd Herman's The Alter Ego Effect recently, and I'm loving it. Try Audible free for 30 days and get 2 free audiobooks. Audible offers the world's largest selection of digital audiobooks and spoken word content. With Audible, you can listen anytime and anywhere to professionally narrated audiobooks across a wide range of genres. Click the link in the show notes to start your free trial today. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to talk about is INFJ characters in books, movies, and TV shows. And I pulled this from a blog post that I wrote this past week that's called 15 INFJ characters in movies, TV shows, and blogs. And you can read it on my blog, which is infjwoman.com. And I'm just going to go through a couple of them. I'm not going to go through all of them. And before we get started, I wanted to say that there's always debate about who is what personality. Some of us, me included, had a hard time enough figuring out our own personality types. I found multiple conflicting reports for most of the characters that we're going to talk about, but I used my best judgment, and I hope that you will too, especially before you decide to write and tell me how wrong I am about a certain character and how they must be this other personality type because of all these reasons. It's meant to be fun and to get you thinking, and that's completely all. Also, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen any of the movies or TV shows or read the books, you've been warned. So we're going to start with movies, and my favorite movie of all time is You've Got Mail. And the character that I picked out of this one is Kathleen Kelly. I don't know that I've actually seen her listed in anything that I have read about INFJ characters. It's probably because the movie is overlooked. It's an older movie and it's, a romantic comedy, so most people, it's not like one of the mainstream ones where people would say, it's something that we need to think about. But it's my favorite movie. I've seen it like a million times. And I love the life that she lives, honestly. She has this really cute studio apartment in New York. And it's in a gorgeous neighborhood in the city. And she owns this amazing bookstore. She goes to Starbucks to get coffee, and her boyfriend is a writer, and they go to these really cool parties. So I think that's pretty awesome. So yeah, I completely love her life. I also love that she likes to pick at Joe Fox. She can stand her ground. And she can pick at him as well, which is really cool. I love that the movie starts with them fighting with each other and then they end up falling in love. That's completely awesome. And even in the midst of all of the failure that she has, with her having to close this bookstore that she is absolutely, completely in love with, that was like her mother's legacy, which was so important to her, she's still able to pick herself up and dream new dreams. I think that's completely amazing. Another character that I really love is Andy Sachs from The Devil Wears Prada. And I feel like Andy is an INFJ because she has big dreams and a plan as well. She knows exactly what she wants and she knows what she needs to do to get that. And so she takes this job that she completely hates with a nasty boss, but she's able to make it work. It's like she changes her personality to adapt to the people around her. So at the beginning of the movie, she didn't care about fashion. She didn't care about how much she weighed. She didn't care about anybody else's opinion. But then she starts working in this place where everybody else cares about all of those things. And all of a sudden, she starts to care about them. And to me, that was her taking on everybody else's feelings and emotions. And also her adapting her personality so that she fit in with the people at work. But she took it to a level that was very intense and very passionate, and it started to affect her at home. And I've seen this in my life, actually. I've done this a few times in a few different situations. So to me, that was incredibly relatable. But then she was also able to realize that this whole personality that she's taken on was not hers. And she was able to let it go and start over. Because in the end, she can't live a life that's not authentic to her. Okay, so as far as INFJs in TV shows, one of my favorite TV shows that I've watched for like 16 years now is Grey's Anatomy. And I really, really wanted Meredith to be an INFJ because I relate to her very well, but I don't think that she is. I've always related to her when she was dark and twisty, and she spent a lot of seasons being dark and twisty, but then there were some where she was more happy and healthy and all put together, and I didn't really relate to that very well. But some people on the show that I do relate to would be Alex Karev. And I relate to him because he acts like he doesn't care about anything or anybody, that he's only focused on himself. And there are some times when I act like that. But I feel like that's a way that he uses to protect himself, because he spent so many years taking care of his mom, who was incredibly broken. And then he took care of Izzy, who also turned out to be very broken. And now he's taking care of Joe, who again is broken. It's like he's attracted to broken people like a magnet. And he always ends up helping them and giving so much of himself to them, but still managing to keep going in the midst of the hell that he's living through. So I feel like he's very resilient and that he has a lot of ideas on how to fix things. And also, as far as his career goes, when he first started out, he wanted to be in plastics because it was cool and awesome, and, you know, that was what McSteamy was doing, and that's where he wanted to be. But then Arizona came along, and he was all about the babies. So he cares a lot more about people than he puts on, especially because he's Meredith's counselor. Ever since Christina left, he's the counselor. So I feel like he could definitely possibly be an INFJ. I think Dr. Weber could be as well. He's the backbone of the hospital. He's the person that everybody goes to for advice. And not just because he's been there forever, not just because, you know, he was the chief for a while, but it's because he knows things. And it's not just, you know, that he's been there forever. He can adapt to whoever is in front of him needing advice. So the next one that we're going to talk about is books. And my favorite book, and one of my favorite movies as well, is Pride and Prejudice. And I feel like Elizabeth Bennet is probably my favorite character ever written. And I want to believe very much that she's an INFJ. I love that she's so smart and she's very witty. And every time that somebody compares me to her, it's a really great compliment. I love some of the stuff that she says. It's just so completely amazing. So I feel like she's an INFJ because she was really hopeful when she first met Mr. Darcy. But then she overheard him saying something really nasty about her, and it hurt her so much. She took it straight to heart. Even though she tried to play it off like it wasn't really that big of a deal and it didn't matter to her, it really did affect her a lot. But even after he hurt her, she was still pleasant to him, and she was able to be around him. And then eventually she was able to see his true character, and she was also able to change her mind about him. Another thing that makes me think that she's an INFJ is that she refused to settle. Her mom was demanding that she marry her cousin as a husband, which was common in those days because they were going to lose all of their money and their house. And it was important for her to have those things. And she was getting a little bit older as far as they were concerned. You know, it was their custom to be married by the time that she was the age that she was. So her parents were putting a lot of pressure on her to get married. But she refused. She wasn't afraid to stand up and say, no, I'm not getting married to that guy. He's ridiculous. I want more than that. And because she wanted more, she didn't give up until she got it. And I absolutely love that about her. So the last one that I want to talk about is Alice Cullen from Twilight. I love the Twilight books. I know, it's kind of a whole thing to say that. The movies are a bit suspect, especially the first one and the last one. But I feel like the middle three were okay. But the books are completely amazing. I absolutely love them. If you haven't read them, you should read them. My sister gave me the first one for Christmas in 2010. And she gave me the first two, actually. And I was like, no, thank you. I don't read books about vampires. That's ridiculous. And she's like, just read it. And I'm like, no, that's not my thing. I don't want to read that. That's ridiculous. And she's like, just read it. She bugged me to the point where I actually read it. And once I started reading it, I couldn't put it down. So I'm telling you the same thing, that you have to read it. If you haven't read the books, if you've just seen the movies, don't judge the story by the movies because, like I said, the movies are a bit sketchy. But the books are way different and way better. So for Alice Cullen, I mean, she can see the future. Do we need to even say more? I mean, I feel like if INFJs were going to have a superpower, it would definitely be seeing the future. So not only can she see the future, she's constantly watching out for her family. She's going above and beyond for the people that she loves. She also loves really nice things. She loves nice cars and nice clothes. She always has to have the best. I like to have things that are really nice. They don't have to be, top of the line, but I like to have brand name nice things. So I relate to her in that way. I also love her relationship with Jasper. It's like they were made for each other. He was so broken when she found him, and she loved him enough to put him back together. And that's not something that I really suggest in real life, but I feel like a lot of times that we're attracted to those situations. She also has a special bond with Edward, who's an INFP. Granted, the bond is a lot stronger because she can see the future and he can read her thoughts, but still, they're both really amazing. They care a lot about their family and they're always thinking about others, which I think is completely awesome. And the last thing about Alice is that when Bella comes into the family, Alice is her best friend and she makes her feel comfortable. And Bella is so much different than the rest of them. She's not a vampire when the story starts and for most of the story, but Alice still accepts her unconditionally and is there for her and wants to be her friend, and I think that's completely awesome too. So I posted about INFJ characters in one of the Facebook groups that I have called INFJ Sorority, and there are some additional INFJ characters that came up that I wanted to mention. One of them is Carlisle Cullen from Twilight. I can definitely see that because he is more concerned about everybody else than he is about himself. He put himself through a lot so that he could be a doctor, and he's willing to risk everything for his family, which I think is pretty awesome. Another one that I thought was really cool is Lucy Kelson from 2 Weeks Notice. I also love that movie. I love most of Hugh Grant's movies. But that one is really funny and really awesome. That one I can definitely see. She's very passionate about her cause. She puts up with a lot from that guy. I forget what his name is in the movie. George, I think. Is it George? I forget. But she puts up with a lot from him in the movie. And it takes her a lot to be able to quit. But she's still able to accept him for who he is, even though he's very shallow and kind of ridiculous sometimes. But she likes to make fun of him too, which is pretty funny. Another one is Belle from Beauty and the Beast, Obi-Wan Kenobi from Star Wars, Remus from Harry Potter, Becca from Pitch Perfect, Katniss from The Hunger Games. I can kind of see Katniss as well. She puts herself out there to be a part of the games to protect her sister, which is kind of a big thing to do. She also refuses to kill anybody else in the actual games, even though she's very good at hunting. It's kind of like, if I remember the movies correctly, and it's been a while since I've seen them, I'll be honest, But I feel like she doesn't want to kill people. She's just waiting for it to be over, rather than to go against any of her morals and values. And the last one that they suggested was Ally McBeal. If you have any characters that you'd like to add to the list, please let me know. I would love to hear about them. You can send them to me at podcast@infjwoman.com, or you can send me a direct message on Facebook or Instagram, which is @INFJwoman. I would love to hear about your characters and hear about why you think they're INFJ as well. So we're going to move on to our Ask Sarah segment. And our question today comes from Jolis. I hope I'm saying that right. It says, I'm searching for a life balance in which I can socialize as needed while giving myself enough time alone to recharge. New York City is crazy like that. It's often tricky to tell the difference between I'm just feeling lazy and I'm spent, it's time to take a break. My question, do you ever experience this? And how do you move past it? Hey Jolis, thank you so much for your question. I do experience this sometimes. It's especially difficult for me when I spend all day at work and then I have to ride the train home with more people, or when I have to go to a crowded grocery store. And if I'm talking on the phone, it's also bad too. When you're feeling lazy, it might be a sign that you are spent. It could also be a sign that there's something more going on too if it happens all the time, like every single day. Like you never feel like you're not spent at all. But the difference is, do you feel this way all of the time, every single day? If yes, then it could be something that's more serious. If no, then it's probably just an introvert hangover. I can see where it would be hard to tell because I've been to New York City several times and there is so much going on there. It's just constant. When it comes to things like noise and there being a lot of people around, those are things that stress me out a lot. So self-care is definitely something that's incredibly important. And spending time alone will help you to be able to unpack all of the things that are going on in your head and to release some of those things. It will also help you to figure out whether what you're experiencing is an introvert hangover or if it's something else. All right, I think that's all that we have for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. You have no idea how much I appreciate you. If you have a story that you'd like to share, we would love to hear from you. You can submit it to podcast@infjwoman.com, or you can send me a direct message on Facebook or Instagram, which is @INFJwoman. If you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes or wherever you listen. It helps other people to be able to find us. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you again next week.